we kind of had this ominous feeling that this was going to be a very significant injury, even though it was not arm related. So now he has surgery scheduled for Friday, recovery 6 to 8 months. Obviously rules him out for the year. If things go smoothly, should be ready for spring training. But still, he has not had anything remotely close to a full healthy season in professional baseball, or at least not the major league level, since being drafted as the top guy. And Kevin, it's just a bummer considering that how good Max looked in spring training for really that first month of the regular season as well. And now this injury has really completely halted that momentum that he had for himself.
Yeah, I think you originally thought, he was struggled against a couple teams, the Rockies, and his that last start before, landing on the IL. You assumed this was like a phantom thing, but it's as legit as it gets. And we had spoken to him the day of Adam Mazur's debut, and he had really just said like, yeah, I'm going to go see a specialist, but really don't know what's going on with the hip. Like no one really knows. Like I don't even know if it's feeling better or worse. And obviously went to this specialist and they recommended season-ending surgery. Originally, when we spoke to Daniel Moskis on Sunday, he had compared this to like Drew Smiley last season, who had some hip issues, increased his velo, and just had to lay off for a couple weeks. They assumed that would be the case with Meyer, I'm guessing, and obviously it wasn't. And he's now out for the season. As he noted, he got off to an awesome start this spring, was using all his pitches very well, mixing everything pretty well. And then just the season started and it was slider heavy, and really just went back to what he was doing last season, really not incorporating the sinker, not incorporating the sweeper, the two pitches that he added throughout the spring that he told us himself that he felt very confident using. So I just found that interesting that he didn't use those, and obviously came back to bite him towards the end of, I guess, his season, really struggling against a couple teams. And well, I'm guessing he'll go on the 60-day, and that'll open up a 40-man spot. We'll see how they use that. Hopefully, I mean, you would assume it makes most sense to just add another pitcher to 40-man. Never hurts to have some depth. So I'm assuming that'll be the case. But yeah, tough loss. And I think, it goes back to a lot of what we were saying. And obviously the Weathers one isn't really known what really happened. It was obviously during that Tampa start towards the latter end of it, as Moskis noted. But, this dude was clearly injured. It was noticed. I mean, they said it himself. Like, this has been something that had been lingering him the last couple starts. Max Meyer had not been pitching well the last couple of starts before the last start against the Rockies. And then it just goes to say we saw the velo jump and all that stuff. And the Marlins are big on having a lot of high velo guys. I mean, we drafted certain pitchers out of the draft. The certain guys they signed to minor league deals or whatever it may be. The only was Kyle Quantrill, who was our only major league signing. But it just goes to show that, like, man, it may just not be all about the velo sometimes. And you're forcing the velo out of certain guys the way they're prepared. I don't know. I think it goes back. This injury also stems back to spring training and the way they prepared certain guys. And I think the way they prepared Meyer maybe wasn't the most efficient way. So we'll see how it all ends up working out for him. But yeah, tough loss for sure.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with your mic right there the last minute or so.
Yeah, my bad.
It's
It's good now?
Never. It's
No.
it's still staticky on us. So just we'll try to get that reset. But yeah. So with this Max out of the equation for the time being, just to give us a refresher in terms of what the rotation looks like for now. Sandy, Cal, Edward, Jansen, Junk. We'll talk about more about him in a minute. And Yuri right there. I guess the big winner here, Isaac, would be somebody like Jansen Junk, right? Who overlooked, who himself has impressed since spring training, but obviously was way lower on the totem pole heading into the year. Finally got that first start last week and did well with it against the Braves. And now there's less immediate pressure in terms of people that might knock him out of there. It seems like that's the one guy for the time being that will get a longer leash than anticipated as a result of Max being sidelined.
Yeah, long term for sure. That seems to be the big winner. I think Adam Mazur is another big winner. I think a couple of the other few guys in the minor leagues and Robbie Snelling are also going to be winning because, you see Max Meyer out for the year. Weathers, who knows how long that's going to be. Cabrera and Sandy are I would say 50-50 shot of getting traded in the next month or so. So this rotation is going to be so depleted for these last months of the regular season that everyone's going to have a shot. And I think that's great for this team in this situation. like you said, Jansen Jung, Yuri Perez. I don't know what they're going to do with Quantrill for the second half of the season, depending on how he's pitching. If he's tradable, we shall see. But yeah, you got to think the young guys, especially Mazur. I think he looked a lot better than what the line would suggest. I think Mazur looked pretty damn good in his Marlins debut against the Phillies. I think you see him up eventually as soon as someone else continues to falter, whether that be Quantrill or Junk or whoever it may be. I think he's the next guy, and then you have a couple of other top rated guys expected to make their debut at some point in the year. And just back to Meyer, this is what you were worried about with such a small frame, a small body, third overall pick. He was a reliever most of his college years at Minnesota. And along with the worries of him not being a good starting pitcher because of lack of repertoire, the other worry was stability. It was him not staying healthy. And it's come to fruition, unfortunately, almost every single year of his professional career. He has been unable to throw more than 120 innings or whatever the number may be. It's just
100.
It's frustrating. Yeah. With Mr. Max, whether it's at AAA or the major leagues, he has not been able to go be very durable, unfortunately. So I think you do have to take a look in the mirror and see what he is going to be when he comes back next year. He's going to report to spring training. He should be good to go for spring training. And I think you have to have a different expectation for this right-handed pitcher now coming off yet another major surgery. I think some of us have been saying for a while now, maybe it's time to try him out as a multi-inning reliever. I think that from day one was the best case scenario for him. And I think now, like I said, with the second major surgery, I think you have no choice but that.
Especially, I hope my mic works now, especially with as you noted, Isaac, you have Mazur, you have Snelling. Snelling needs to be added to the 40 man. I believe he could go Rule 5 this upcoming season if he isn't added. Obviously, they will add him, so that this is probably their best opportunity. So there's guys in the minors that they could call up right now, like those two specifically. And yeah, I think at this point, with the amount of pitching talent that they have, and they could potentially acquire at the trade deadline, I'm sure they'll try to find some pitching, and we'll see what they do through the draft. There's going to be a lot of pitching talent coming through this organization, meaning the pressure's on for Meyer to either figure it out as a starter or as Isaac noted, just make the move back to having him as a reliever, which could probably be the best case at this point, just the way the pick has turned out. But yeah, tough to lose, for him, obviously, because he had gotten off to such a good start, and then unfortunately it just kind of faltered. And who knows? I mean, it feels like a lot of that was due to the injury.
Some of the ripple effects here. He is arbitration eligible next year for the first time. We briefly touched on this in our private chat. So just to clarify, he does get a raise moving forward, more than major league minimum, but because of the lack of production and volume in his big league career, it's only slightly above that. He's still a guy that is certainly going to be on this roster, and we'll see how the recovery goes. If they, depending on how they feel with other arms that they have, he would still have some sort of trade value if it comes to that. We know through the years that his name has trickled into various trade conversations. So certainly not an untouchable guy, even though he was a former number 3 overall pick. But I flashed the stats a moment ago. The fact that we're now 5 years removed from the draft, and he's been a replacement level guy in the big leagues. So as good as he looked this year, there did seem to be some meaningful changes to his game this year. But all that does is kind of, maybe in part due to pitching through this injury, didn't fully cancel out the struggles that he had last year at the big league level, and then during his very initial cup of coffee back in 2022. So it was, all things considered, man, the jury is still very much out on him. And sometimes it's not fair. Sometimes with guys that have durability concerns, you don't get to see the best version of themselves for a sustained period. We hope that's not the case. He still has those, I think it's 4 more years of team control ahead of him. There still is time to figure this out. But this was such a golden opportunity for him to stick in a rotation, to build up his volume. The pressure really wasn't on all that much in terms of his results this year, but he was somebody that you could see a path to him being really successful this year as long as he stayed healthy, and wasn't able to do that. Anything else that we haven't covered, Nate, on Max that's on your mind you want to touch on here?
I think it just adds on to what a disaster this has been for this year's rotation, especially in a rebuilding year, like we've noted, like we've known for the past couple months. And Brax goes down early, and then Ryan goes down a couple weeks ago, and now Matt's. A lot of young guys you want to get a lot of run, just as we've seen with Edward Cabrera, 27 years old. You never know what you could have in a guy. You want to get them all the reps they can, especially in a lost year like this. So really, really tough. And honestly, after that start, let me go back to the date. After April 21st in Cincinnati, when he struck out, was at 14. Every start since then, he's allowed pretty much 5 or 4 runs in every start, except for that one against Chicago, that day game on that Wednesday. But you could tell something was wrong for a while. I'm not sure how long it's been mismanaged for, but it certainly was mismanaged. When your pitcher has clearly not right, it's been affecting him for a while. And obviously, when he gave up 10 hits to the Rockies, it was extremely evident. It was right in front of their face. But I feel like a couple starts back, they definitely could have realized it. Easier said than done, of course, but you want to see that managed a little bit better. But yeah, just another really gut punch for this rotation that had a lot running into the season.